Before we get into the video, could everyone please subscribe to my Endless Diary Tales channel? Thank you so much. In my previous life, I died out in the snow with my starving child in my arms while my husband, Michael Lee, was lying on the heated brick bed with his sister-in-law, Lisa, counting money. Reborn on the day of the proposal, he came again with betrothal gifts, wearing that false look of deep affection. "Emily," he said, "I have to shoulder 2 households and look after Lisa." I laughed, smashed the teacup, and flung hot tea across his face. The whole village cursed me for being ungrateful. Only Ryan Walker, the boy next door who had quarreled and fought with me since childhood, climbed over the wall with a bundle of hot buns. So smashing the cup was the signal. "Ha. Fine, I'll marry you. In this life, I don't want mountains of gold and silver. I only want the boy who, when I was starving to death, secretly placed a bun on my windowsill." I opened my eyes. The tea in my hand was actually hot. Michael stood in our main hall, wearing a martyr's expression. My older brother's gone. Lisa is a widow left alone with her child. I can't just ignore them. It was believing that exact face in my past life that left me frozen in the snow, holding a child reduced to skin and bones while he and that so-called pitiful Lisa lay on the warm bed counting my dowry money. I smashed the cup at his feet. Hot tea splashed up his pant leg. "Michael Lee, do you take me for a fool?" I glared at him and spoke each word clearly. "If you're in love with Lisa, just say it. Don't use taking on 2 households as a cover for your shame." The whole room went silent. My father's eyes bulged. My mother tugged at my sleeve. Michael's mask of false sincerity finally cracked. "Emily Shaw, get out." I seized the teapot. "If you don't get out, I'll pour this on your face." He stumbled away in disgrace, and the crowd outside erupted. "The neighbor girl has gone mad. Michael Lee is such a good catch and she still turned him down. So what if he has to take care of 2 households? That's responsibility." I clenched my fists, forcing down my anger when my child and I starved to death in my last life. How come no one called that responsibility? Suddenly, a head popped up over the wall. Ryan pushed himself up and vaulted down smoothly, carrying an oiled paper bundle. "I heard you smashed a cup as a signal for rebellion." He grinned and tossed the bundle to me. "They're just plain buns. Eat them while they're hot." My nose burned and tears spilled. In my past life, the last thing I ate before starving to death was the cold bun Ryan had secretly tucked on my windowsill. "Who wants your buns?" I scolded, though my hands clutched them tightly. "If you don't, I'll feed them to the dog," he teased, reaching to snatch them back. "You dare?" I shielded the buns with one arm and kicked at him. He dodged nimbly, laughing like a rascal. "What are you crying for? Where's that fire you had when you smashed the cup?" I bit into a bun, then suddenly raised my head. "Ryan Walker, when you said you'd marry me, does that still count?" He froze for 3 seconds, then burst out laughing. "Emily, are you serious?" He tilted his head, his eyes glinting with a mix of temper and amusement. "You know I'm much poorer than Michael Lee. So what if you're poor?" I took a fierce bite. In my last life, I married a rich man and still froze to death in the snow. His smile faded, his gaze turning deeper. I realized I'd said too much, so I kept chewing in silence. Ryan didn't press. He only reached out and wiped the grease from the corner of my mouth. "All right, tomorrow I'll come to propose." The very next day, the whole village blew up again. "That girl is crazy, passing up the wealthiest man around to choose a poor soldier. Didn't you hear? She smashed a teacup in public yesterday, humiliating Michael Lee. A shrew like that deserves to be poor forever." Carrying my laundry basket down to the river, I no longer cared about their pointing fingers or harsh words. In my previous life, swallowing my anger only earned me a death by starvation. In this life, I'm determined to live differently. Suddenly, a basin of dirty water splashed down at my feet. I looked up to see Aunt Wong standing with her hands on her hips, smirking coldly. "Watch where you're going," she sneered. My fists clenched, and I was about to snap back when a mocking voice came from behind. "Aunt Wong, should I tell everyone about your son sneaking peeks at the women's bathhouse?" I hadn't even noticed when Ryan Walker showed up, swinging a military canteen in his hand. Aunt Wong's face went pale instantly, and she spun around and left in a hurry. "Coward," Ryan muttered with a raised brow. Then he looked at me and grinned. Come on, I'll carry you across the river. Before I could react, he crouched down in front of me. Who needs you to carry me? My ears burned red. Hurry up, he glanced back at me, his eyes so bright they almost scared me. Otherwise, I'll scoop you up myself. Grinding my teeth, I climbed onto his back. He leapt up suddenly, making me gasp and clutch his neck. Listen up, everyone. Ryan shouted at the top of his lungs. Emily Shaw is my childhood sweetheart. Anyone spreading gossip? He jolted me on his back. My old man climbs her wall at midnight to check. The crowd of nosy uncles and aunts across the river went dead silent. I laughed and gave him a playful punch. That evening, Ryan popped up out of nowhere again, waving a wrinkled piece of paper. Here's a marriage agreement. Licking his lips, he said, let's pretend to get married. Shut everyone's mouths. I lowered my head to look. The paper was crammed with his crooked handwriting. All wages turned in. If we fight, I must coax my wife. Every day I must buy my wife pork buns. Ryan Walker. I jabbed my finger at the last tiny line. Final interpretation belongs to Ryan Walker. What does that mean? It means his ears turned scarlet. He spun around and bolted. It means one day I'll make it real. I clutched that so-called marriage agreement. As I reached the old locust tree at the village entrance, a shadow lunged out and grabbed my wrist. Emily. Michael Lee's eyes were bloodshot and the stink of alcohol clung to him. You came back too, didn't you? This time I swear I'll never fail you again. Let go. I yanked my arm, but his grip only tightened. I know you came back too. His voice trembled. Last time was my mistake. This time I swear I don't understand a word you're saying. I sneered. Mr. Lee, aren't you supposed to be taking care of Lisa? Blocking me in the middle of the night. What do you think you're doing? Sweat broke out on his forehead. Caring for Lisa is temporary. Once the family property is divided, I'll stop. Then it'll be just us. Planning that far ahead before I've even married in? I mocked. You claim taking on 2 households was to honor your brother, but who knows what you really want? Michael's face darkened, and I was just about to strike another blow when the sound of a bicycle bell rang behind me. Ryan rolled to a stop with 1 foot on the ground, 2 pounds of pork hanging from his handlebars. In the moonlight he narrowed his eyes. So, Mr. Lee, dragging my wife out for a midnight tragedy play. I seized the chance to wrench free and darted to Ryan's side. He yanked me behind him in one motion. Get lost. Touch her again, and I'll make sure your whole family starves without the commune's grain. Michael staggered back, then suddenly stared at me with a twisted laugh. You think Ryan Walker is some saint? He has his own secrets. Bang. Ryan's fist smashed into the tree trunk by Michael's ear. Leaves rained down onto his shoulders. Say one more word. Ryan leaned down, his shadow covering Michael completely. And I'll send you to see your brother right now. Michael's face turned ashen. He spun and ran. Ryan watched his retreating back, then suddenly grabbed a pole leaning against the wall. In just a few strides, he caught up and swung it hard across Michael's back. Michael shrieked, stumbling so badly he nearly toppled into the ditch. Let that teach you to stay away from my woman. Harass her again and I'll break your legs. Michael scrambled away in terror, crawling on all fours. I stood frozen in place, only then realizing I was trembling. Emily, Ryan dropped the pole at last. Ryan took a few quick steps and stopped right in front of me. His voice suddenly softened. You're crying. Was it Michael Lee? Only then did I realize that my face was streaked with tears, though I didn't even know when they had fallen. Who's crying? I turned my head away, but he caught my chin and pulled me back. Clause 3 of the agreement, he said, glaring fiercely, even though his finger only brushed away the tears at the corner of my eye. You have to smile every day. My nose stung, and I almost cried again. In my last life, I had cried until there were no tears left. In this one, there was actually someone who refused to let me cry. I can't just smile on command. I kicked him. The way you swung that pole back there, you looked like you were beating a dog. What if you'd killed him? You scared me to death. He suddenly broke into a grin, showing off his white teeth. Then I'll go easy from now on. Without warning, Ryan bent down, slung me over his shoulder, and started walking. Put me down, Ryan Walker. I pounded on his back, but he just bounced me a little higher on purpose. Michael Lee wasn't wrong about one thing, he said. I froze. What? His steps faltered, his voice dropping low. I really am no saint. The night wind fell silent, so quiet I could hear his heart pounding violently. He shifted me higher on his shoulder and strode forward. This life, you're not getting away from me. Before dawn the next day, Ryan was pounding on my window. Emily, wake up. Let's make money. With my hair sticking up like a bird's nest, I shoved the window open only to nearly get a fried kriller stuffed into my mouth. He vaulted inside, one hand braced on the windowsill, his army green satchel bulging. What is this? I pushed it open and found the bag stuffed with colorful ribbons and scraps of cloth. Startup funds, he said, rolling up my bedding with quick practice moves. I asked around. The textile mill sells waste scraps for 50 cents a pound. We can turn them into hair accessories and sell each for $3. My eyes lit up. In my last life, I had buried myself in farm work at home. I never knew such opportunities existed. We spent the whole day making hair flowers. The next morning, the two of us squatted at the busiest stall in the marketplace. Who told you two you could sell here? Paid protection fees yet? 3 thugs swaggered over. The leader kicked over our wooden board, scattering the hair flowers everywhere. I was about to argue, but Ryan pressed down on my hand and gave it a gentle squeeze. Don't be mad, brother, he said with a servile smile, handing them cigarettes. We'll pack up right now. Once they left, he immediately grabbed my hand and pulled me along. What are you doing? I stumbled after him, reporting the black market. His eyes shone with excitement. Those thugs are in cahoots with Director Lou of the Public Security Office. A real name report nets a $50 reward. I skidded to a halt. You already knew they'd come stir up trouble. He flashed me a grin, his sharp canine tooth gleaming in the sunlight. Otherwise, how could we catch a big fish? In the end, we really did get the reward. On the way back to town, I was so giddy, I skipped and bounced without watching my step and twisted my ankle in a pothole. Without a word, Ryan crouched down, his palm wrapping around my ankle. Does it hurt? His thumb pressed circles into the swelling. We'll rub it with medicinal wine when we get back. His voice blurred in my ears. His fingertips were sliding up along my ankle, stopping at the edge of my long skirt. The bustle of the street seemed to vanish, leaving only his rough breathing brushing against my calf. Ryan Walker. I kicked him. Where exactly are you touching? He jerked his hand back like he'd been burned, the tips of his ears blazing red. Your ankle's swollen. You need good circulation. The very next day, we had just set up our stall again when officials from the Commerce Bureau arrived. Where's your business license? One of them, wearing a badge, kicked over our crate of goods. Ryan yanked me behind him. Comrade, we have a real name report here accusing you of illegal business. The man shook out a piece of paper. At the bottom, the signature stood out clearly, Michael Lee. Ryan suddenly leaned down to my ear. Don't worry. I could only watch helplessly as they shoved him onto the back of a 3-wheeled motorcycle. Right before they took him away, Ryan even winked at me. At the detention center, I stood on tiptoe to peek inside. He was chewing on a plain bun, but when he saw me, he still smiled. Emily, this bun is nothing compared to the ones you make. My nose stung as tears welled up again. I couldn't help remembering that in my past life, the last bun he'd left on my windowsill was the final thing I ate before starving to death. Are you stupid or not? I choked out. He reached through the bars and held my hand. Not stupid. As long as you're all right. That night, my wooden door suddenly banged open. Emily Shaw. Michael Lee staggered in, reeking of alcohol. Ryan Walker's not coming back tonight. Let's see who can protect you now. Frightened, I bolted upright in bed, grabbed a broom, and swung it straight at his head. He caught my wrist and forced my knees apart with his own. What? You still want to hit me? He tore up my nightclothes with one hand, panting. Stop pretending you're so pure. You think being reborn changes anything tonight? I'll make it official. Once you're carrying my child, let's see where you think you can run. Bang! A shadow flew in through the window, kicking Michael hard into the wall. Ryan yanked his collar open to reveal his military uniform and slapped a paper down on the table. The army approved our marriage report. His lip was bruised, but his eyes shone with a frightening brilliance. Sign it, Emily. My hands shook as I scrawled my name. Ryan wrapped his arm around my waist. Touch her again, and it's destruction of a military marriage. You know what that means, Michael? Michael's face went ashen. He lunged at me, snarling. You think? I rose on my toes and steadied myself against Ryan. His whole body stiffened before his hand clamped the back of my head, pulling me into a deep kiss. Michael roared and shoved Ryan aside. I held up the marriage report and laughed at him. See this? This is what making it official really looks like. Michael suddenly burst into hysterical laughter. Emily Shaw, you think this means you can start over? I'll tell you. We both came back. That means it's fate. You're talking nonsense. I cut him off coldly. What? Rebirth. Ryan's expression darkened. Dangerous as a storm. I clutched his hand tight. Michael kept ranting. I know you'll get pregnant this time. I know. Crack. Ryan's fist smashed into his face. Blood spurted from Michael's nose. Rebirth. Ryan hauled him up by the collar. Then do you remember how many vile things you did last time? Michael's pupils shrank in terror. Ryan swung at him again. Seems like you haven't improved at all in this life either. He rammed his elbow into Michael's chest, folding him like a shrimp, then kicked him out the door. Michael stumbled off into the night. Ryan spun back and pulled me into his arms. His heartbeat pounded like a drum against my ear. I chuckled softly against his chest. So mad, huh? He said he'd hurt you. Ryan's voice still shook. Even if I had to live again 100 times, I'd kill him every time. The next day, gossip spread through the village like wildfire. Did you hear? Ryan Walker went to jail before. How could a man like that be a soldier? The army must be blind. Emily Shaw married a convict. Disgraceful. I gripped my laundry beater at the well, listening to those gossipy tongues wag. Ryan slipped a milk candy into my hand. Don't get mad, he said with a lazy smile. The real show is still ahead. Sure enough, that afternoon, the loudspeaker at the village entrance blared. Attention all members, the party secretary's voice boomed. Evidence has been found proving Michael Lee embezzled the production team's grain. After investigation, last fall's shortage of 500 pounds of wheat. I jerked my head toward Ryan. He was squatting by the wall, cracking melon seeds, winking at me. The crowd exploded. Michael Lee. Last year, my mother's body swelled from hunger, and it was you who stole the grain. All my family got were rotten sweet potatoes. Beat him. I rushed along with the others to Michael's courtyard, where we found him cornered against the wall. Michael's face was already bruised when suddenly Lisa, his sister-in-law, stumbled out with her hair in disarray. She grabbed his collar and screamed, "You're no man at all." The crowd fell silent. Tears streamed down her face, her arms covered in bruises. You talk about taking care of 2 households. You can't even perform in bed. Michael's face drained of color. He raised his hand to strike her, but Ryan Walker darted forward, seizing his wrist. You hit a woman and call yourself a man? Michael's face flushed red. You set me up. You schemed against me. Ryan stepped forward and pulled a stack of yellowed account papers from his pocket. Michael Lee, these embezzlement records are in your own handwriting. The sheets scattered across the ground, rustling. The villagers' eyes turned blood red. Someone hurled a clod of dirt, followed by rotten vegetables, then reeking eggs. All of it pelted Michael. Ryan pulled me away from the mob, his warm palm covering my ears. Don't listen. Don't look, he whispered. In this life, we only pay attention to good things. 3 days later, I hung a wooden sign reading Spicy Pepper Shop on the front of my old house. At dawn, Ryan insisted on pedaling his tricycle to the county to buy supplies. You'll freeze to death, I scolded, trying to pull him back onto the king bed. But then I realized something was wrong with his temperature. You've got a fever. He groggily caught my wrist. Emily, don't be afraid of the cold. I found you this time. A tremor shot through me. In my past life, right before my child and I froze to death, I had sobbed the same words that it was so cold. Ryan, I pried open his tightly clenched fist. Did you come back too? His face was burning hot, but suddenly his eyes opened. The smile that was always there was gone, and his gaze was wet, as if it had crossed through 2 lifetimes of snow just to find me. That bun on your windowsill. I should have come back sooner. His hoarse voice cracked, and my tears spilled instantly. You bastard. I cupped his blazing face. Why didn't you say you'd been reborn earlier? Did you enjoy watching me struggle with Michael Lee? He suddenly dragged me down into the bed with him, his breath scalding against my ear. I was afraid if he knew I remembered all those miserable things, he'd refuse to marry me. I punched his shoulder. Then why pretend about a fake marriage? He only grunted and pulled me into his arms. I was afraid you still liked Michael Lee. More than that, I was afraid you hated me for not protecting you last time. Now you know. I bit his neck. Add one more clause to that agreement. In this life, if you dare push me toward an early death, try it. He chuckled low through his fever, his arms squeezing me until it hurt. Yes, ma'am. After Ryan recovered, neither of us brought up rebirth again. I kept reworking my family's ancestral chili sauce recipe, until I finally made a pot so good. Ryan jumped with joy. I held up a ladle of the glistening red sauce. This flavor will sell all the way to the provincial capital. Ryan sweated buckets from the spice, but he still grinned. Tomorrow, I'm going to the credit union for a loan. We'll turn the backyard into a workshop. On the day we expanded the workshop, Michael Lee stirred up trouble again. Relying on his father's position as village head, he forced the purchase price of peppers down to 3 cents a pound. The villagers squatted in the fields, smoking, avoiding each other's eyes, bitter but unable to speak up. Emily. Uncle Wong edged over. I'll sell you my peppers if you pay 5 cents. Before I could answer, Ryan slapped down the cash on the spot. Deal. The crowd buzzed with excitement. Before dawn the next day, our courtyard door thudded under heavy knocks. Aunt Jang squeezed in with 2 burlap sacks of peppers. Buy mine first. That stingy bastard only offered 3 cents. Bah. Right after came Uncle Xiao, then Aunt Lu, then the rest of the villagers. Soon, hand carts lined the road all the way to the village entrance. Michael stood at the production team office, his face black as the bottom of a pot. You're undermining the village's unified purchasing policy. Uncle Wong spat straight at him. It's my choice who I sell to. What law am I breaking? Uncle Wong shouted back at Michael. Soon, my courtyard was piled high with bright red peppers. Ryan squatted under the eaves, tallying accounts, when he suddenly pulled over my hand, stained with chili. Does it hurt? Only then did I notice the skin had split open. I sucked in a sharp breath. A little, he lowered his head, wrapped my fingertip with his handkerchief and muttered. Then this batch of chili sauce should be called bleeding heat. A few days later, after we collected the last cartload of peppers from the neighboring village, we took a shortcut home. From the back mountain came a woman's scream. It was Lisa. Ryan yanked me behind him into the tall grass. Lisa was cornered against a wall by a burly man with a scarred face. He was yanking at her arm. You've already given me a son. What are you still pretending to be virtuous for? Get off your high horse. Lisa suddenly whipped a pair of scissors from her chest. Touch my son and see what happens. A flash of steel and the man clutched his stomach, collapsing to his knees. Ryan and I rushed out, but Michael Lee burst from behind the trees, kicking Lisa to the ground. Poor. I married 2 households just to keep the Lee bloodline, and you dared betray me. Blood streaming down her face, Lisa shielded her child. And you call yourself a man? Your brother is gone, yet you do such shameful things. Michael snatched the scissors from her hand and drove them straight into her chest. The child screamed in terror. He struck again, wild and merciless. Then he lifted his head and spotted us. It's all your fault. If it weren't for you, I wouldn't have lost everything. Ryan shoved me behind him. Run. Michael charged at us with the bloody scissors. Ryan dodged sideways, seized an axe from the firewood stack, and swung it up. Michael Lee, you dare turn your violence on a woman? The axe crashed down onto Michael's hand, splitting it open. He dropped to his knees, howling, still spitting curses. It's all because of you. Clutching Ryan's shirt, I glared. The one who ruined everything has always been you. Michael burst into crazed laughter, pointing at Lisa's body. See, this is what happens to anyone who goes against me. Ryan Walker, you came back too, didn't you? You picked up the broken shoes I didn't want in 2 lifetimes. You think being reborn means. Ryan's axe whistled past his ear, embedding itself deep in the tree trunk. Say one more word, and I'll make sure you die worse than you did last time. The sound of rushing footsteps echoed in the distance as villagers hurried over with tools in hand. Michael glared at us one last time, clutching his ruined hand, and bolted into the cornfields. It's over, Ryan whispered, turning and clutching me tightly. His whole body shook. This time I protected you. My fingers trembled as I gripped his collar. Are you insane? If that blade had been an inch closer. It wouldn't have, he said, cupping my face. His cheek scratched, but his gaze was steady. I calculated the angle. I raised my hand to swat him, but he caught my wrist. Emily. He leaned close, his breath hot against my ear. Tomorrow, come with me to register our marriage. My heart skipped. Don't we already have the agreement? Not enough. His thumb brushed across my palm. I want you rightfully, openly as my wife. Before dawn the next day, Ryan dragged me to squat outside the Civil Affairs Bureau. Congratulations. The clerk handed us the forms with a cheerful smile. Young people are always so eager. As soon as the stamp fell, Ryan's eyes gleamed. He pulled me into his arms. Emily, the dream's real now. His voice muffled in my hair. What I owed you last life, I'll repay with interest this time. I pinched the soft flesh at his waist. Who asked you to repay anything? Hey, what are you doing? Laughing, Ryan swept me up and spun me in a circle right there at the bureau entrance. Morning light brushed his eyebrows, fresh and youthful. Back home, he plopped me onto the back seat of his bicycle. Come on, wife. Time to make chili sauce. The wheels rolled toward the rising sun. I wrapped my arms around his waist and pressed my face to his back. That evening, I crouched at the stove, stirring the chili sauce as it simmered. Ryan had a cigarette dangling from his lips as he headed toward the office to file paperwork. Before leaving, he turned back and grinned. Wait for me, wife. I laughed and cursed at him, then bent my head over the bubbling chili pot, stirring. Suddenly, there was a sharp crack from the back window. Before I could even turn around, a damp cloth smothered my nose and mouth. When my eyes fluttered open again, Michael Lee's twisted face loomed over me. If I can't have you, no one will. His eyes burned with crazed hatred. He dragged me into the inner room. My head slammed against the brick, my vision blurring as his distorted face came closer. He tore open my collar with one hand, panting as he forced himself down. You were mine last time. Ryan Walker is nothing. A poor soldier, that's all. I kicked up hard toward his crotch, but he caught my leg and slapped me so hard my vision went black. He yanked at my waistband, but just then the front door exploded open with a crash. Police, don't move. Ryan was the first through the door. He kicked Michael straight off me, stripped off his coat, and wrapped it around me, his hands trembling so badly he couldn't fasten the buttons. It's okay. It's okay, he muttered over and over, clutching me so tight I could barely breathe. Michael was pinned to the ground by the officers, still howling. Ryan Walker, you'll die miserably. Shut your mouth. Ryan roared, wheeling around and slamming his fist into Michael's face. That punch is for Emily. By the time the officers dragged him back, Michael's face was already a bloody mess. Ryan crouched in front of me, carefully wiping the tears from my cheeks. His voice was raw, almost broken. I was late. I shook my head and clutched his bloodied fist with trembling fingers. The day Michael Lee was taken away, the whole village was in an uproar. That beast murdered even his sister-in-law and child. Serves him right. I stood in the crowd as Michael suddenly lifted his head, his cloudy eyes boring into me. Emily. His voice rasped like a broken gong. If only I'd met you first. There's no if. I cut him off, my voice soft but steady. No matter how many times life restarts, I will never choose you. For a moment, I saw his contorted face clearly. Maybe I really did owe him something in another life. But now the debt was paid. Michael thrashed wildly, the shackles clanging. Lies. It was you. Ryan turned my face away, his thumb brushing away fresh tears I hadn't realized were falling. Let's go home. I leaned my head against his shoulder. The chili sauce needs stirring. Half a year after the chili factory opened, Ryan suddenly pulled out an old almanac, circling a date with a mysterious smile. This day has a red star for family blessings. Let's have our wedding then. On the wedding day, the entire village came. Our workshop was draped in red silk, with 20 banquet tables set in the courtyard. Aunt Wong brought over a wine cup, her wrinkled face stretched in a smile. Emily, I was blind before. Ryan threw his arm around my shoulder. Eat Aunt Wong. That night, after sending off the last guests, the new house was so quiet I could hear my own heartbeat. Ryan fumbled around with the quilt, blushing scarlet as he laid it on the floor. Allah, sleep down here, he mumbled. Ryan Walker. Furious, I hurled a towel at his face. We have the marriage certificate. The wedding's done, and you're telling me this now. He scrambled to catch the towel, his eyes darting everywhere. I wasn't ready. I laughed bitterly, yanked a little booklet from under my pillow, and smacked it down in front of him. Ryan Walker, whose newlywed handbook is this? On page 18, the corner was folded. Emily Shaw. Ryan lunged to snatch it from me. Who told you to go through my stuff? I darted away nimbly, but he caught me around the waist and pressed me down onto the bed. His breath seared against my neck and shoulder, hot and ticklish. Are you sure? Sure about what? I pretended not to understand. Sure you're not a coward? His eyes darkened. He lowered his head and nipped my earlobe. You asked for this? The red candle flickered, and the shadows on the wall finally merged into one. 3 years later, the billboard for spicy pepper sauce towered over the provincial train station. Reporters crowded into our factory, microphones outstretched. Director Shaw, may I ask how you grew from a small workshop into sales of over 1 million jars a year? Before I could answer, Ryan shoved into the frame, waving our marriage certificate. The secret? Marrying a lucky wife, of course. I stomped hard on his army boots. He bared his teeth in pain but grinned at the cameras. See, with a fierce wife at home. How could I dare not succeed? The crowd roared with laughter. I pinched his waist viciously, but he only took the chance to wrap his arm around me. Facing the cameras, he declared shamelessly, honestly, my wife's chili sauce is so good. Even her farts smell fragrant. Ryan Walker. I snatched up a basket of peppers, ready to clobber him. But he ducked away, laughing, hiding behind the reporters. The Emily Shaw, who starved to death in her past life, had now become the chili queen, splashed across newspaper headlines. That night at the celebration banquet, Ryan, red-faced from drinking, cornered me between the warehouse shelves. Wife, his nose brushed my ear. Do you know what our most successful product is? Before I could answer, he scooped me up, sat me down on a sack of chilies, and slid his hand toward my belly. Our little chili pepper. I bit his shoulder. You've had too much. You'd better work twice as hard. His breathing grew heavy, the shelves rattling with each bump. Footsteps suddenly echoed outside. Who's in there? A flashlight beam swept past. Ryan pressed my head against his chest. Factory inspection. We're checking chili quality. When the footsteps faded, I shook with suppressed laughter. Moonlight poured through the window, shining on the piles of fiery red chilies, just like the sunset by the little river that year. That day, I wore a bright red padded coat on purpose. Michael Lee shuffled out, his back bent, his hair shockingly white, though only half a year had passed, as if he'd aged 20 years. Come to laugh at me? He asked bitterly. I shoved a jar of chili sauce into his hands. Try it. It used to be your favorite. He stared at the bright red sauce inside the glass jar, then suddenly laughed. Emily Shaw. What else do you know? Plenty. I slowly unscrewed the lid. Like how Lisa was reborn too, and that the child you killed, he was your brother's. Michael jerked his head up. Impossible. Michael, reborn or not, no one would ever choose to spend another life with you. Your brother still died in this life. And that man, he forced Lisa. He murdered a woman who'd been violated and your own brother's child. I stood. Michael Lee, you are a sinner. At the door, a dull thud made me glance back. He was slumped against the iron table, forehead pressed down, shoulders shaking violently. 3 days later, the prison guard called. Ryan's face darkened as he listened. When he hung up, he caught my chili-stained hand in his palm. Michael Lee killed himself. I froze for 2 seconds. Oh, it's over. He pulled me into his arms. Tonight we'll eat dumplings. I'll mince the filling for you. Snowflakes drifted past the window. The first snowfall of the northern winter. The lights of the chili factory glowed warmly. At last, the blizzard of my past life had completely ceased. The day I found out I was pregnant, Ryan was in the warehouse checking inventory. I walked over with the test results in my hand. Without looking up, he called out, "Wife, this batch of chili sauce has to be rushed out." He didn't even finish his sentence before I smacked the test slip against his face. Ryan squinted at it for 3 seconds, then froze like lightning had struck him. Before I could even nod, he scooped me up and spun me around the warehouse 3 full times, kicking over an entire crate of chili sauce in the process. "Ryan Walker." I yanked his ear. "That's money. Who cares?" He laughed like a fool. "I'm going to be a dad." By the next day, the whole village knew Ryan had lost his mind. He went door to door handing out a dozen bottles of special chili sauce, announcing to everyone he met, "My wife's pregnant. Take good care of her." Aunt Wong accepted a bottle and smirked. "Those who know realize it's Emily who's pregnant. Those who don't would think you're the one about to give birth." I stood in the courtyard watching him blush crimson as the neighbors teased him. My nose suddenly stung. When Ryan came running back and saw me in tears, he panicked. "What's wrong? Where does it hurt?" I shook my head and buried my face against his chest. "You gave away too much chili sauce. We'll take a loss." He burst out laughing, gently rubbing my belly that hadn't even begun to show. On the day I gave birth, the whole hospital could hear Ryan's wailing. "Doctor, my wife's hands are cold. Nurse, she's sweating so much. Mom, Emily, bite me if you need to." After hours of agony, the baby's cry finally filled the ward. The nurse came out holding the infant. 6 pounds 8 ounces. Mother and daughter are safe. With a loud thud, Ryan dropped to his knees outside the delivery room, sobbing louder than the newborn. "Wife, let's never do this again." Lying weakly on the hospital bed, I watched him fumble with our daughter in his arms, clumsy and overwhelmed. My heart tightened as I remembered the child who had frozen to death in my last life. "Ryan," I whispered. He rushed over immediately, tears still on his face. "What is it? Are you in pain?" I took his hand and pressed it gently to our daughter's tiny cheek. "This time, let's raise her together." Sunlight poured through the window, warming the newborn's wrinkled little face. When our daughter turned 5, she was rummaging for candy and dragged out a yellowed piece of paper. "Mommy, what's this?" she asked, waving the wrinkled sheet, her little braids bouncing. I was busy seasoning a new batch of spicy crawfish sauce. One glance made me nearly spill the spice jar. It was that fake marriage agreement. Only now on the back, another line had been scribbled in cramped handwriting. Final clause, "Emily Shaw has the right to regret forever, but Ryan Walker will never agree." The date at the bottom was the day we had gotten our marriage certificate. "Your dad's handwriting is awful." I pinched my nose and laughed, though my eyes suddenly burned hot. Just then, Ryan walked in with 2 boxes of peppers on his shoulders. He saw what was in her hands and rushed over in a panic. "Little rascal, don't touch Daddy's lifeline." Our daughter giggled and ran around the room, paper in hand. He chased her a couple of steps before suddenly turning and pulling me into his arms. "What are you looking at?" he whispered against my hair. "It's in black and white. You can never take it back." The fragrance of chili filled the air. I stood on tiptoe and nipped his chin. "Who said I wanted to take it back?" He lowered his head and kissed me, his stubble scratching my skin until I laughed. Our daughter covered her eyes, peeking through her fingers. Sunlight streamed through the glass windows, landing on the paper that carried the weight of 2 lifetimes. The oil stains from years past overlapped with the fresh scrawl of his promise, just like our stumbling, imperfect, but finally complete life together.